Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badharayanam Sutra Bhashya Krudau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Om. Hari Om to all of you. The subject that we are discussing is all about know yourself. To know that self, we should also have an understanding of what is the true self. When we say self, we ourselves identify with multiple things in life. For example, as a human being, I do have multiple coordinates in life. The father of my children, the husband of my wife, correct? Or the son of so and so, or the grandson of so and so, or the kind of profession that I have, correct? So if you see, we do have multiple coordinates in life. So if you ask a question, what is my true self? Is there a single answer from anyone that maybe you can say I am so and so, I am having a name, I am born and brought up in a family, right? I am the son of so and so. But do we have a single definition of your own self? Can we make a definition like that? It is very difficult, because what we are trying to do is basically we are trying to relate it with the objective world and coin out something. I am the father of so and so, meaning with respect to the children, I am relating myself. Or if you see, I am the so and so in this particular organization, I am the one who is driving this. Again, with respect to that organization, with respect to the kind of nature of work you are doing, correct? That is how we relate. That is how we are creating our own identities. But if you look closer to all those things, are they same or are they changing? Or are they always constant? These identities which we are trying to, superimpose in us, are they ever consistent or constant? It is not, because we can also bring more and more identities on a day-to-day basis. So then, what is my true identity? Is it this name? No. Is it this body? Is it this mind? We are creating relations with these objects, but these all are relationships or relations that we are creating. But we are much beyond these relations. One side, we all have ego. For example, I am so and so, I am doing this, I am enabling this, I made this much, or I do have this much of wealth, or I live in this place, etc. What we are trying to do, we are trying to relate ourselves with different things, and that is how the so-called as ego. One side we have ego, and again I am not saying we should discard all ego when we are interacting in the material world, because without ego you cannot interact. In Vyavaharam, in transactions, you cannot do the transactions without ego. Correct? But our subject is basically, what is my true identity? Is this the ego? Is this the kind of relationships that we are creating is my true identity? Obviously no. So one has to start with the plane of ego. So when we start looking into ego, let us see, am I this body? Body is also always changing. Every 7 years our cells are getting changed. Right? Our, attributes of bodies are changing. Correct? And we are able to witness the changes which are happening in the body. And if you see, if I am the mind, again the changes happening in the mind, the emotional levels, the emotional context which are happening through the mind, we are able to witness that. I'm not the intellect also, because I learn things. I know that I know something. I know that I don't know something. So there is something which is witnessing the intellect also. And if you see the happiness, again, the changes, the emotional levels, the moods, or the changes that are happening in our happiness level, we are able to witness all those things. So I cannot be the mind, I cannot be the body, I cannot be the intellect, I cannot be the prana, even the life force we say. Obviously, I am something beyond that. So that is where one side, if you see, you will be able to appreciate the axis, x-axis, y-axis, negative x-axis and positive x-axis. Ego is at the one side of your axis, and other side is basically your true self. The journey, the whole spiritual journey is about moving from the ego to the self, the real self. These two are at different levels. If we see the coordinate system, negative side and the positive side. So from ego to the true self, this is the exploration, this is the journey. And they are in the opposite direction, because whatever we are trying to identify, ultimately we are able to see that that is not my true identity. It means what? All the superimpositions, all the fake personalities or the assumed personalities that we are making are not the reality. That is, there is something. So that something is at the other part. So the whole life is basically transitioning from the ego to identifying the true self. Maybe in the context of Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam says that the journey is all about from Nara to Narayana. Nara meaning the normal human being, and Narayan is basically the one who has all these profound dimensions of the divine attributes. So the whole journey of human being is about going away from the ego to the true self. Clear? So ego is what? Ego, as I mentioned, is a part of our mind that chooses individuality. The sense of I, the sense of mine, or we call it as mamakaratva. Ego is all about the mind's, not capability, the mind's ability, I would say, ability to choose or identify the different individualities. But we are not the ego. We cannot identify ourselves with any of the objects, such as the name that we have, the wealth that we have, because these all are not the permanent. There is something which is permanent. That is the true self, that is the true nature. In another way, we call it as knowing the Ishvara, knowing the Lord. Ishvara Sakshatkaram or Atma Sakshatkaram or Brahma Sakshatkaram. These are the typical terms or words we use. So this is all about a journey from the ego to knowing the true self. And what is that true self? That is what we are undergoing. That is what we are going through. The definition of the true self. If you are able to recollect the last few verses, the true self is Sad Chid Anandam. Sad Chid Anandam. Sat is all about the existence, the isness. I exist, therefore I experience. First and foremost, we have to exist. In the deep sleep, in the absence of all this body, mind, intellect, sense complex, because those things are dormant, but you exist, I exist. That is why we say after the sleep, yeah, wonderful, beautiful sleep for 5 hours. So existence is Sad, is the isness part of that. You all appreciate that, because the existence is the fundamental thing. For you to experience what is needed, your own existence. Maybe the people who ask this question, show me where is your Lord, what is the proof that God exists? So the only proof that you need is whether you exist or not. Our existence itself is the proof that God exists. Because for you, what came first? Tell me please. Whether this body came or the life force came. Tell me. When a baby starts growing in the womb of a mother, what is really needed? Is the body came first or the Jivan came first? Which one came first? Body came first. So what is the rationale that you are saying body came first before the Jivan?
Inside the womb, there will be body.
No, but where is the force? Where is the life force? The life force has to come first. Correct. And you see how much of weeks it takes to identify or even deciding the gender, etc. It takes after a long time. But the first is basically the spandana. So it means what? Existence is the important thing. You need to exist, then only there is body coming and other aspects around it. So Sat is existence, Sada Chid. What is Chid? Chid is the consciousness. In your awareness, you are able to see the changes. You need to exist and you need to be aware of the changes. The changes happening in my body, the changes happening around. This is the consciousness, this is the Chid. And Anandam. Anandam is what? Anandam is all about the bliss. And that bliss is independent of everything. What is happening in deep sleep? Tell me. In deep sleep, are you taking all your thoughts into deep sleep? Are you taking all your worries into deep sleep? First of all, you will not get sleep if you are worried. Correct. So, in deep sleep, what is happening? What is happening in deep sleep? Are you conscious about body? Are you conscious about mind? Are you conscious about space? Are you conscious about time? Because you go to moon in your dream, right? So when you start dreaming, you are even losing the space, time, object causation. But your mental projections are happening as the dream. You agree? And you should also be there in your dream. Or is there a scenario like you are not in your dream? No, correct. So, in the deep sleep, what is happening? Body, mind, intellect, sense, relationship, everything is plunged into the reality, so called as Sad Chid Anandam. So, in the absence of everything, you get the maximum happiness. But there is ignorance prevailing there. But still, in deep sleep, nobody is suffering. Is there a case like, you don't want to sleep because it is bored, or you don't want to sleep because it is really, tiring? You don't want to have sleep because it is painful. Is there a case like that? Everyone loves to have deep sleep. That is how we all are designed. At the end of the day, the 8 hours of sleep that you are getting is basically enabling all these objects to dip into or plunge into that subject. And you are with that reality in the deep sleep. And without any objects or without any influence of the receptors, so called as body, mind, intellect, sense, etc., we are having the maximum happiness in the deep sleep. Clear? So in that case, happiness is inherent in us. You all agree with me? Is happiness inherent to or inherent in all of us? And that happiness is not dependent on anything. Without anything, or in the void state, we all are enjoying maximum happiness, meaning that happiness is not dependent on any of the objects. Clear? So, Sad Chid Anandam is the true nature, it is existence, it is consciousness, it is the bliss which is independent of anything. And that is the very true nature of our life. And the individuality is all about we associating that truth with the body, mind, intellect, sense, etc.
And the whole purpose of knowing yourself is to attain that eternal happiness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And get rid of samsara.
Correct. And that self, that truth is our adhishtanam. Adhishtanam meaning that is the fundamental substratum. Existence, consciousness, bliss is the substratum, and we are that. And all those personalities and the things which we are making in life is basically we are superimposing the objective world into that self. And that superimposition we call it as ego. And ego is the mouthpiece of our personality. And what is our total personality is comprised of how you define, because I asked this question in the beginning, how you define yourself. I am so and so, I am from this family, I have wealth of this much, I have studied, I have this much of academic degrees, etc., etc. So what we are trying to do is basically we are trying to relate our personality as a summation of body, mind, intellect, sense, our biological urges, our neural structures, our emotions, our traits. It can be a number of attributes. Then the influence of the gunas, sattvam, rajas, tamas, it will keep on going like that. So the personality that we are creating is basically, it's a factor of multiple things, including the type of body, the composition of the body. When I say composition of the body, the mix of all the 5 elements, agasham, jalam, vayu, agni, prithvi, the mix of your mental capabilities, the mix of the emotions that you have, the mix of the traits that you have, the mix of the qualities that you possess, be it good or bad, whatever is it, influence of the gunas, influence of the people around you, influence of the family that you are born and brought up, many things are there. So our total personality, we can say these all are the factors comprising to the total personality. But what is our true personality? Our true personality is beyond all those things. Our true personality is not having any stains of the objective world.
No attributes.
No attributes. And when we say going from ego to the true self, ego is the thing which makes I sense, the sense of I. And when we grow in life, ultimately we will also know that our true purpose in life is not the things which we are trying to do now. Because if you see our aspirations in life, as a 10th class student, aspiration of a 10th class student is basically getting good marks and getting admission into the 12th. Once the 12th is done, again going into professional course. After that, see, every now and then our aspirations are changing. So ultimately, the aspirations that we are trying to attain in the objective world, at some point of time we will understand that these are not the things which I am looking at. I am looking at something which is profound. What is my true purpose in life? The true purpose in life is only one thing: know yourself. And knowing that self will not prevent you to work in your regular environments. Knowing that self will not preempt you from the worldly affairs. Knowing yourself will not ask you to run to forest or go to Himalaya. No. Knowing yourself, and with that knowledge you live in this world and make more sense. So when I say make more sense, ultimately you will understand that the worldly things are not that important. But you will not ignore. You cannot ignore also. But the real purpose is not coming from the objective world. This is the practical understanding one should have when going through the scriptures, when going or attending the satsangs, etc. Correct. So the ego drops when we are fully immersed. See, let me ask a practical question to all of you. You might have seen artists or some kids, they are while they are drawing, or maybe you take your example also. Some of you are good at arts and music and things like that. When you do out of the passion, you sometimes you get into or fully get into that, right? Fully get immersed into that. Correct. And what is the kind of feeling that you have when you are fully into something? Tell me some of your experiences when you are fully passionate about doing something and nothing bothers you. What is the kind of feeling that you have when you are fully immersed into something which you like? Out of your passion you are doing. Please tell me. Happiness is something, right? Happiness is one thing. What else?
Time flies by.
You will even forget the space and time. You may say that I didn't know that. Time is just flying, I got fully into this. What else you have actually? When you are fully into, your passionate pursuit. What is not happening there? Tell me, when you are fully into that, what is not troubling you? Please tell me.
No other thoughts.
No other thoughts. Unwanted thoughts are not troubling you. Absolutely right. What else? Yeah, ego. Because I am not, you are not even thinking that others are watching me or not. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm performing. You are not at all, under the trap of ego. You are having total happiness. You are fully immersed. Other thoughts, unwanted thoughts are not disturbing. Correct? You are deeply engrossed in something. So what happens is basically the I sense, the ego or the I sense is basically attenuated there. Correct? Attenuation. Well, you know what is attenuation? Attenuation is basically suppression. So the ego tendencies are attenuated when you are fully into that. See, you must also read this book, The Flow, right? In The Flow, Mihal's Flow, you can appreciate what I am trying to say. Please read if you have not read that book, right? So the I sense basically attenuates, and what is happening is basically when you are fully immersed into that, the spontaneous forgetfulness is also happening. Correct? You are also away from the ego identities, and you are fully into that, and that is where you get perfection, you get happiness there. You will not get distracted with unwanted thoughts, etc. Similarly, in deep sleep, do you have the I sense there in deep sleep? No sense at all, because you are basically away from the trap of the receptors, your objective world, thoughts, etc. No identification. In deep sleep, is there any identification? No. So mind is not associated with the objects. First of all, the mind is not there. Objects are not there, right? Mind is not associated with the external circumstances. The problems that you have with your neighbor and all is not there. Mind is not there. The external circumstances are not playing any role. And again, if you see, our mind's capability again to associate with anything. It can be with thoughts. It can be with the sound that this metro train is making. Anything it can be, right? It can be infinite. So there is no limit of objects that mind can connect. When I say mind can connect, you can possess ego out of anything. If that is the case, my question, for those who are in the software industry or IT industry, there is a concept called as a pointer. When you really want to access some memory or variable, maybe in C programming you might have seen pointer to a memory or a variable, right? So this ego becomes a pointer to start and think, who am I? What is my true nature? Ego becomes a point. But first of all, you should also appreciate that there is something called as ego, and that ego is a kind of identification with n number of things. If you appreciate that, then only ego will come. Otherwise, most of the times people will ask, what is this? Without that, no, I have to be, because I am the body, I am the mind, etc. If somebody is standing still in that plane, then there is no point in discussing that ego is the pointer towards knowing the true self. So one has to really understand ego. What is ego? This is the fundamental thing. Understand what is ego, and the second understanding should be, I cannot be the ego. Understanding ego is fine, but I cannot be the ego. If you think that, no, I have to be this because I am the father of so and so, I am the mother of so and so. Without me, these things will not happen. Right? And without me, who will run the show in my office? See, if you think like that, then we cannot progress. First is basically they understand that there is ego, and second is basically understand and appreciate that I cannot be this ego. I use these things, but I cannot be this ego. Then second step is basically recognize the ego by analysis and discrimination. Now the next level is basically whether this ego is permanent or not, whether this ego is always existing or not, whether this ego is always sustainable or not. Then if you go further, we will understand that, these all are temporary characteristics happening in my life. So that is where the Viveka Buddhi, the power of discrimination comes. What is permanent in life? What is impermanent in life? What is temporary in life? What is always there in life? So, if something is temporary in life, and if you are always trapped in that, then please understand that I am going in the wrong direction. That is called as bondage. If you understand that my associations are always with the objective world and I do have a bondage or called as the bandhagaratvam, then you should come out of that, because what is permanent in life should only be considered. What is impermanent in life, you can just do it for the sake of transactions, but you cannot have dependence on the impermanent things in life. Cannot have dependence on something which is impermanent in life. And if you see, all objective world things are impermanent. You can transact with those things, but you cannot have dependency on the impermanent things in life. This is called as the Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka, so called as the power of discrimination, Viveka Buddhi. And if that is the case, then you are clear. What is permanent in life is basically your true self. That is Sat Chid Anandam. And that is the only thing which I can have dependence. I cannot have dependence on the objective world things. Detaching the dependence from the outside world things and attaching to that self. This is called as Vairagyam. This is called as dispassion. It is not running away. It is not, not doing your work or job. Transactions are happening, but no dependence on the external world things. And the dependence is on what? Dependence is on the true self, the true capabilities that you possess. And those capabilities are the attributes of the Brahman. It is not different from the universal consciousness. It is not different from the Ishwaratvam. No dependence on the Anitya Vastu and dependence on the Nitya Vastu. This is called as dispassion. This is called as Vairagya. And you need to have certain disciplines in life, because these all are not just philosophies to be read and forget. Life is all about progression from ego to the self. So day by day, we have to progress. So that is where the discipline should come in life. Discipline should come in the form of the Shadda Sambati. We discussed this even in Tattvabodham, right? Samam, Damam, Uparadi, Tidiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam. We'll not get into deeper aspects of that. And then comes the desire, the intense desire to know what is my true purpose in life. You call it as Ishvara Sakshatkaram or Bhagavad Sakshatkaram or Brahma Sakshatkaram or Moksham or inner freedom, whatever name you put, doesn't matter. Know the true purpose of my life. Am I a mere human being who took some birth and doing something in this world and die? Am I a human being, a mere human being who is trying to possess something, gather something and ultimately die without having more value or more purpose in life? So one has to tackle the ego. If our ego is left to its ignorant way, this self-knowledge will not happen. That is where this discipline is needed. When I say discipline is not only about getting up at that time or this time. I'm not talking about that discipline alone. It is all about the positive values. If you go back to Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Devasura Sambat Vibhaga Yogam, the Devi Sambat we are talking about. You all appreciate that. So these all are the values or traits that one should have along with certain discipline. For what? For knowing the true self. And this should be the urge, this should be the desire that one should have. The intense urge or the intense desire to know the true purpose in life. And this is called as moksha. And when can we attain moksha? After?
When we want to
Here, now itself, here itself. Moksham is not something, after death. Usually people, if some death happens, we will, let the Atma attain moksha. No, it is not after the death. Yeah, otherwise also we should say that. But the moksham is something that has to happen in this life itself. We don't have any life in heaven and all. Everything is here. This world itself is complex. Then how can we imagine about going to another world or heaven and a life after death and all? Everything is here. Ihaiva, ihaiva. You have to do the prapti in this janma itself. So what is happening is basically we are carrying a chain. And that chain we are trying to hook it up with different things in our day-to-day affair. We are having this chain and we are trying to bind it with relative existences. Because we are doing a lot of transactions in day-to-day life. So we are also carrying a chain and we are tying it up with different transactions. And what is happening is basically we are drifting away from the absolute existence and we are always trying to chain up with the relative existences. This is the only problem. Theoretically, this is clear for everyone. And what is happening is basically we are losing the awareness. And this is the trap of Maya. That is how Maya is designed, correct? Maya is designing the things like, you lose the awareness of yourself and you use your chain to associate with the relative, existences, and then you become a samsari. That is how it is designed. So what is the freedom that we have? What is the freedom that we have as an intelligent human being?
Well, freedom to understand.
We have got freedom to understand the nature of the objective world, attributes that you are transacting.
Nature of the Maya.
Nature of the Maya. And transact with those things because you cannot run away. But don't create dependencies. So when you don't create dependencies, what is happening is basically the karma malinyam will get subsided in terms of not accumulating ragam, dvesham, kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, not carrying attachment, aversion, enjoyership, doership. Because you are clear, your true self is much beyond those things.
So your mind is clear on this.
The mind has to be clear. Because the problem with mind is basically mind is associated with everything, and mind, even if you are undergoing this journey, tomorrow also the mind will go back to its inherent character, inherent nature, to associate and get into Bandhagarut. So the Chitta Shuddhi and the Chitta Nischalada, both are needed. Nischalada meaning the stillness of the mind. Yes. Chitta Shuddhi and Nischalada, both are really needed. So our ego has to be trained to disassociate. That is the only way to come out of the problem. The ego has to be trained to disassociate from the attachments of the world. Maybe we can say, start minimizing the attachments in the world. I am not saying you should not be responsible or you need to run away or you need to get rid of that. Once the ego is trained to dissociate from the attachments, ultimately what happens is basically the karma will not bother you much. And you will also not create the new karma vasanas. What happens is basically if something is destined to happen through you, it will just get executed through you. You will not even think about, next let me aim for something beyond this. So the karma will just happen, and if you are not accumulating the karma vasanas, karma will not bother you much. So people usually ask the question like, oh, you are saying detach from that. How can I do that? Because I have to be passionate. We are not talking that you should not be passionate. And let that happen through you. So you should also know how to dissociate from the attachments. I'm not saying about the involvement. Involvement should be there. This is only about dissociating from the worldly problems, worldly objects. Correct. So that is what we are discussing. This is the Brahma Vidya our Hindu Samskriti is giving. This is the Tattva Vijnanam. And Atmabodham is profoundly giving this knowledge to us. Right? So what is important here is when we turn away from our true self, we see only projections of ego. When we turn away from our true self, we can see only the projections of ego. You might have seen when you tie a stone with a rope, and if you do this rotation, right? There are two forces acting, centripetal force and centrifugal force. What is the tendency of the stone when you rotate?
To go away.
The tendency, if you just leave, what will happen? Will it come inward? It goes tangential. Similarly, but if you have a proper hold, if you properly hold this and rotate, and you sometimes you feel the kind of what is the right word? You feel the kind of force or pressure which is really acting and going outward, inward, going outward, inward. It means what? You are under full control of the stone which is getting rotated with the string. So in life, what we need to have is basically always, ground us with the reality, with that true self. Whatever you do, right? Don't allow the stone to take charge. Don't allow the ego to take charge. So what we should allow? We should allow ourselves to always associate with the true self. And this is the knowledge that Atmabodham is giving. With that, we'll go to the verse number 26. I think we covered up till there. Any questions from online audience? I'm hoping that you are also equally listening, enjoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. 26. Atmano vikriya nasti buddhir bodho na jatu idi. Jatvidi. So buddhir bodho na jatvidi. Jatvidi meaning jatu iti. Buddhir bodho na jatvidi. Jiva sarvamalam jnatva jnata drishtedi muhyati. So atmano vikriya nasti buddhir bodho na jatu idi jivaha sarvamalam jnatva jnata drishtedi muhyati. So this true self is beyond the space-time object causations. This true self is free from all the traces of matter. Whatever we see, appreciate, enjoy, etc., all are in the realm of matter. But matter alone cannot exist. Matter borrows the existence from the consciousness principle. So our consciousness principle, our true self is beyond the space-time object causations. It is beyond the objective world. It is beyond the traces of matter. And this is the consciousness principle. This is not the matter principle. This is the consciousness principle. And this principle gives existence, consciousness, bliss, Sad Chid Anandam. And this consciousness is not affected by the mental thoughts and our physical actions. This is not affected by the mental thoughts and physical actions. This is the consciousness force. This is free from all the traces of matter, and this is beyond the space, time, object causation. So this is Anadi, this is Anandam, and that is our reality. And the real self is beyond all the limitations. But what is happening in us? We ourselves identify as a jiva. This is the word we should understand here. Jiva. And that jiva is what? That jiva is the limitation superimposed into that reality in the form of body, mind, intellect, sense, space, time, object, causation, the worldly relationships, everything you superimpose into that pure consciousness, and you are making it limited. The Jiva Atma, you call it as, is basically the superimposition that you are making from the traces of matter onto that pure consciousness.
Can we also call that Karana Sharira?
Not Karana Shariram. Karana Shariram is basically the part of Prakriti. Karana Shariram is still your vasanas and all those things, right? We cannot call that as a Karana Shariram. Maybe one way we can also call because all the traits, all the vasanas.
It's more like Karana Sharira plus Atma.
Absolutely. Yes. When you say Karana Shariram, please understand that Karana alone will not exist. The Sukshma will also come into that, right? Stula, Sukshma, Karana, Shariram plus Atma, we call it as Jiva. Correct? And you decouple all Stula, Sukshma, Karana, Shariram and all the traits, etc. So your Atma, that Jivatma is equal to Paramatma. That is the Tattvamasi. This is the Mahavakyam saying. So this Jivatvam, this individuality is basically what? Superimposition of all the limitations into that pure consciousness. So what one has to understand now? One has to understand that I am beyond all those limitations. All those limitations are superimposed onto that reality due to the mind. The mind has done the adhyaropam. This is the right Sanskrit word. So I should understand that these all are, the fake superimpositions my mind has done out of multiple reasons. Out of the build of the body, mind, intellect, out of the way that I am brought up, out of the influence of the external world. But with Jnanam, we need to understand that I am beyond all these space-time, object causations, all the problems of the material world. Clear? Verse number 27. Rajju sarpavadatmanam Jivam jnatva bhayam vahed Naham jiva paratmeti Jnadasched nirbhayo bhaved. So here the beautiful analogy of snake on a rope. So what happens when you identify or when you see a rope in the dark? What is the kind of feeling or worries that will come to you?
Sorry, say again.
When you see a rope in the dark,
You may think it's a snake and
then you will also further think, oh, if this snake is going to attack, bite, correct? So what happens here in this case is basically the fear comes.
fear because of illusion.
Fear came out of due to two reasons. Ignorance, correct? So here our self is pure, and what are we trying to do? Basically we are doing the adhyasam of that self into the external world things, and due to that what is happening? The fear is coming because the external world is limited. There are limitations from the outside world. You, the limitless, are limiting yourself with the petty things. And in the snakes, in the rope's problem, if you have identified first as a rope, will you get afraid? No. Or if you have not seen that rope, you will not get fear, right? Similarly, what one has to do is basically know that true self and understand that that true self is limitless. It has no limitations. All those limitations are superimposed by the mind due to the influence of the mind that is having in the external world affairs. Know this. This is enough. If you know this, then there is no dvaidam. There is no duality. Srimad Bhagavatam says the duality comes out of fear, bhayam. Bhayam dvidiya abhiniveshadasyad ishad abedasya viviryayo smriti. When you identify yourself as something different from the true self, obviously bhayam will come. And how that bhayam comes? Bhayam dvidiya abhiniveshadasyad ishad abedasya viviryayo smriti. When you forget your own true self, you obviously will get fear. When you forget your true self, meaning Isharan, the divinity which is there within you. When you have a smriti, vismriti meaning forgetfulness, not knowingness, you will always get a duality in you, and that duality will create fear in you. And how that fear will go? When you are clear that I am not dual, I am same, I am not different from that reality. As an individual, as a human being, correct? I have taken this form, this shape, as an individual like this, and I am destined to do certain things in life, maybe the kind of activities that you are supposed to do, but know that doing activities or getting trapped into those things are not my ultimate aim. My ultimate aim is knowing the true self, and for the sake of transactions do these things, but not get affected in this. This is the knowledge we should have. So here Maya plays two mischievous attributes here. One is the non-apprehension of the self, not knowing this true self, right? Somebody foolishly thinks that this stone and rope is just rotating like that without having any support from this finger, just rotating like that. This is basically the lack of awareness of the self. We call it as the avarana shakti or the agrahanam or the power of concealment. And other one is basically what? The misapprehension of the outside things as the reality. For example, I myself identifying with body, mind, intellect, the problems that I am having in life, I myself associate with all those things and I think that these are the realities. Correct? So misapprehension of the gross body, mind, etc., 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 and perceive that they are real. So this is the power of projection, or call it as the Viksheva Shakti, or we can say it as Anyada Grahanam. Knowing something wrong in the place of right. The other one is basically not knowing the right thing. Agrahanam is that. Anyada Grahanam is identifying yourself with something which is not correct and you believe that that is a reality. So what one has to do is basically, it is good to know or good to have the theoretical understanding that the true nature of self is not these things. And how to practically live, that is what I am trying to say. Basically, no, these are not the reality. Still go with whatever you want to do, but don't have dependencies on them, and slowly come towards your inner core and rediscover that self, because that self is already there. Rediscover or recognize that. There is no new truth or no new knowledge that you have to get. Only problem is basically this is covered. So one has to do the rediscovery or recognition. Clear? So that is what this verse says. You wrongly identify that your Atman is superimposed with all the external world things, but the moment you understand your reality is beyond all those things, that fear will go. So what happens? Bhayam will go, and when you know your true self, the abhayam will come from there. Abhayam meaning the real refuge has to happen on that true self. The refuge should not be on your external things, your objective world things. Refuge cannot be on those. You can transact, but refuge should be only on your true self. So that true self is called in different ways as per Srimad Bhagavatam again. Vadanti dat tattvavidaha yat tattvam jnanam advayam brahmedi paramatmedi bhagavan iti shabdyate. That reality is called in different ways or forms or names. Please understand that that reality is same. You can call it in different names. Clear? Verse number 28. Atma avabhasayatyeyo. Atma avabhasayatyego. बुद्ध्यादीनि इन्द्रियाण्यपि बुद्ध्यादीनि इन्द्रियाण्यपि दीपो खडादिवत् स्वात्मा जडैस्तैर्न अवभास्यते जडैस्तैर्न अवभास्यते न avabhasyate. So here are the profound terms. Atma avabhasyatyego. So yeah, you will be able to understand this analogy. You might have seen maybe in these days in your buffets. Have you seen the candle which is giving warmth to your food? Have you seen in your buffets? No? So you will also appreciate the different colored pots or the structure that is used, right? Different colored or maybe steel or gold and the different color of the light. Have you seen these kind of things? Everybody is very dull. Have you seen or not? Yeah. So now my question is basically, what is really happening? Is the light same? The light which is used to glow these candles, whether they are different? What is different here? Why you get a different look and feel and different appearance here? Each candle has got a different color. The what is the shape of that box or the holder is different, correct? The candle has different color. Probably smell of the candle will also matter, correct? So this self is illumining all the minds and bodies. Same self is illumining the different bodies and mind. Similar to this jar or pot where fire illumines all the jars and pots. Now my question is, these candles, you all said that they are giving different ways of light or different colors or shades or smells, etc. Can they do the process of lighting by themselves? The candle can do by themselves. Similarly, the upadhis, which we all are different upadhis, can this body alone act and think just like that without the existence, consciousness, bliss principle? Can these bodies can have existence, can have experience, can have the isness? So the sad or the sat is needed for the jadam to work. So the self illumines in all mind sense organs, just as a lamp illumines in a jar or a pot. But these material objects cannot illumine their own self because they all are inert. When there is no life force, this body doesn't have any sense. We cannot preserve this body. So, Atma avabhasayatyevo. So, please understand that this Atma is shining. This principle is the ever effulging principle which is shining in all of us, irrespective of the three avasthas which we are undergoing: the Jagrada avastha, Swapna avastha, Sushupti avastha. So this is the light of all the lights. Consciousness is our fundamental reality, and that consciousness is a continuum that flows. Consciousness is a continuum that is acting without any causality. where again we go back to Chadusloki Bhagavatam. Bhagavan says to Brahma that the Anvaya Vedireka Bhava. For the consciousness principle to exist, there need not be matter principle. Whereas for matter to exist, there needs to be the consciousness principle. And consciousness principle is not dependent on the matter principle. Consciousness is not a part or a product or a produce of the matter principle. It is an independent principle. That is where Atma avabhasayati. Atma illumines in all of us, and this Atma illumines the entire universe. This is the non-dual principle. This is the Advaita Tattvam. And whereas matter is Jadam, matter is inert, matter cannot have its own existence. It cannot independently exist. If you go back to Srimad Bhagavad Gita, you will appreciate the Paraprakriti and the Aparaprakriti. Paraprakriti is the consciousness principle, and Aparaprakriti is the Maya. Aparaprakriti is the realm of names and forms. Names and forms cannot exist independently. Asti, Bhadi, Priyam, Namam, Rupam. Nama Rupams are names and forms. Nama Rupams cannot exist without the Asti, Bhadi, Priyam. Existence, consciousness, bliss principle. But in reality, you will not be able to see the isness, you will not be able to see the consciousness, you will not be able to see the bliss. You only appreciate the names and forms, but understand that names and forms cannot have any meaning without the Sat Chit Anandam. And you are that. You are a manifestation in this body, with this mind, with these capabilities, with these coordinates that you have. But you are not the matter principle, you are the conscious principle. And that is your true nature, that is your true self. That is called as your Surupam. You cannot be the Swabhavam, you cannot be the attributes of the nature, or you cannot be the attributes of the Prakriti. You are the Purushan, you are the Kshetrajnan. You cannot be the Kshetram, you cannot be the Prakriti. We have seen all these things in Purushottama Yogam, Kshetra Kshetrajna, Vibhaga Yogam, in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So the self is all awareness, consciousness, bliss absolute. Let's take one more sloka and finish there. Verse number 29. Swabodhe nanyabodhe cha bodharupadayatmanaha nadipasya anyadeepecha yada swatma prakashane. So, for a lighted lamp to exist, do you need another lighted lamp to show that this lamp is there? Or for you to see the light during the day, apart from the sunlight, do you need another form of light? So, Atman, which is the fundamental knowledge, in itself needs no other knowledge to know itself. Do you need to go to a mirror and see that you exist? Or if I ask you to close the eyes, maybe, and I am saying that I am going to do the meditation, I assume that you all are, going to listen to me. But after say 10 minutes, some of you are getting bored, and if you get up and go, I will not have any clue that all the people are sitting in front of me until and unless I open my eyes and see. But whereas for me to know my own existence, I need a torch, or do I need to go to a mirror and check whether I exist or not? You don't need any other knowledge for your existence. Atma is the fundamental knowledge. There is no need of any other knowledge to know itself. Because this is all awareness, this is all consciousness, this is all bliss. This is the consciousness, awareness, bliss absolute. And this is the truth. But what happens is basically this original experience, when you are, along with yourself, be with yourself, when you do meditation, etc., you will get this feeling, the ardent feeling, you will get it. But when you start interacting in the world, what happens is basically the experience is getting drifted into the spatial and temporal space. Because whatever we deal in day-to-day life is all with space-time object, correct? You are interacting at this point of time, say 4:18 p.m. on a Sunday, 29th of October. There is a space-time object, coordinates or connections there. What happens is basically the original experience, which is beyond the space-time object, what happens is basically due to the nature of interactions that we have, what happens is that experience is getting drifted towards the spatial temporal object space, where what happens because this, we cannot deny this is the transactional plane, and you as an experiencer coexist in this scenario. But what happens is basically we ultimately gets drifted totally from this, and you get trapped into the spatial temporal kind of space, and you forget your true self. Out of these transactions, you always get trapped. There is a tendency to get trapped into the transactions and ultimately think that I am a limited being, and I am really desperate. I don't have this. I am suffering in life. So what one should do is basically at the end know this drift is happening, and the perceptions also will change in this drifting. Correct? What one should do is basically one should be evolved to come out of this drifting and go to the core reality.
That will come through bhakti.
Through different ways.
Yeah, all four yogas.
Yes. So, but now what is happening? There is a knower unknown. There is a subject and object. There is I and you and that and things like that. Right. For sake of transactions, this is fine. But in your inner plane, you need to have dissociation with these things. Ultimately, when you understand that, when you have food, you always chant Brahma Arpanam, Brahma Agno, Brahmana Agudam, Brahmaivadena Gandhavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhan. So, the Brahman who is sitting inside me, I am consuming food for that Brahman.
Sitting
And that
inside
Brahman
me means actually is me.
is me.
Yeah.
And that Brahman is everywhere. Right? For that Brahman I consume, and that consumption will ultimately become as a homam for the outside world. So it means there is no difference between the reality which is pervading everywhere, because I am also a part of the reality. I am a manifestation in this reality. You are also a manifestation in this reality. So then where is the difference? The difference is only at the plane of objects and the transactions, but the core is same.
Does that does Vasudeva Kutumbakam come from there only?
Yes.
I guess.
And Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, Matta Paradaram Nanyat Kinjidasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvamidam Prodam Sutre Maniganaiva. This is just a chain. Everybody is in me. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyade പൂർണ്ണസ്യ പൂർണ്ണമാദായ പൂർണ്ണമേവാവശിഷ്യത്തെ. ഓം ശാന്തി ശാന്തി ശാന്തി. ഓം കായേന വാചാ മനസേന്ദ്രിയർവാ ബുദ്ധ്യാത്മനാ വാ പ്രകൃതേ സ്വഭാവത് കരോമി യത് സകലം പരസ്മൈ നാരായണായേതി സമർപ്പയാമി. സർവം നാരായണായേതി സമർപ്പയാമി. ഓം ശാന്തി ശാന്തി.